What's up, Clipper Nation? This is Brian Cullen.
And I'm Joseph Rye Ward.
And you were listening to the Clipset podcast, a brand new LA Clippers podcast. Welcome to the inaugural episode.
What's up, guys?
How's it going? Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about the first half of the season. We're at the midway mark. Some of the things that we like, dislike, and we're going to recap today's game a little bit against the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, I got to watch. Brian, unfortunately, didn't.
It wasn't that unfortunate. I got to hang out at the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Living large here in LA.
That's what I'm talking about, bro. Elbow deep in some cheesecake?
It's a culinary city, dude. And you know I hang out at Cheesecake Factory.
That's what's up, dude. What did you get? What kind did you get?
I didn't get any cheesecake. I ate a salad.
What is wrong with you, bro?
I live in Los Angeles, all right? I've got to get my podcast body ready.
All right. Well, anyway, game today, more of the same. Clippers have this annoying habit of playing down to their competition, and we tend to struggle against teams that push the pace. And New Orleans under Alvin Gentry does almost nothing but that. It kind of seems like when the Clippers play a team that is kind of in their go-go gadget phase, they tend to reserve all their energy for offense, particularly the bench. And that kind of is what happened today. Up and down game. New Orleans never really got out to a huge lead, but they kind of kept us at bay until the fourth quarter when the Clippers did their patented, all right, now it's time to win. We're better than these guys. Yeah. Let's just go out there and out-talent them. And they ended up, pulling out the game. It was a little tense at the end there, but, they got it done. So,
you talked about the Pelicans kind of pushing the pace and Clippers maybe struggling when teams want to do that. Mm-hmm. But when I saw the starting lineup that they announced, I saw Rodney McGruder in the starting lineup, which I got really excited about. This is something I've kind of been thinking about the last few games. Rodney's had a really strange kind of quiet season so far. Mm-hmm. You don't really see him show up on the stat sheet too much. He hasn't really shot the ball all that well. I mean, he went his first 6 games without making a bucket.
Yeah, I was really hoping that he never made a basket as a Clipper.
Yeah,
and just
kept
go playing. Yeah.
0 for 150 on the season or something like that. But one thing I notice about McGruder is, when he gets out into transition, if he's on a fast break, he is fast. And then I kind of thought about it. Yeah, he came from that Miami team last year. Yeah. That Miami's whole philosophy, it seems like the last couple of years is, we're not the most talented team on the floor, but we're going to outrun you. We are going to, it's a boxing game. Yeah, dude, we're just going to exhaust you for the first 3 rounds. And in the fourth quarter, when you're tired, that's when we hit you.
Yeah. I mean, their whole thing is you have to come into camp in shape. And even this year, they, what's his name? James Johnson. Yeah. He's a terrifying, peak athlete.
Yeah, and they told MMA for fun.
Yeah, I know. And they're like, yeah, no, dude, you're too fat. You can't come to camp until you're not that fat.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, Miami body shames their players into being better than the other team.
Exactly.
But McGruder was amazing when he was in Miami until he got hurt, right? And he worked so well on that. Yeah. And I feel like him in that second unit a lot. A big issue that was going on there is when you've got Lou and Trez on the floor, 1, you're not getting that many touches. Right. And 2, it kind of slows down a little bit, right? There's a little more ISO, like Lou and Trez like to run their pick and roll. But outside of that, it's kind of a lot of, and then if that doesn't happen, everybody kind of struggles to reset and figure out what they want to run. Right. So when I see McGruder in the starting lineup, I'm thinking, him and Pat are just going to run the floor like that. Yeah. And I got to imagine that was somewhat of the mindset behind putting him into the starting lineup was this is a young team that wants to run. McGruder's one of our fastest guys on the floor. Yeah. Let's see what he can do. Yeah. Didn't really show up that much again on the stat sheet, but when you look at the plus minus on this game, he was one of the only starters that was a plus.
He is the only starter that was a plus, which is impressive in its own right. He's almost like what Doc tried to tell us Avery Bradley was last year.
Unstatable.
Yeah, unstatable, but he's actually doing positive things. Yeah. The problem is, his shot's not falling. He's not shooting well at all this year. He kind of had made his name as a 3-and-D guy, but then you dig into the stats and the shooting percentage doesn't jump off the page, but he's sort of on the fringe of the rotation, right? So you're trying to get into the playoffs knowing what 9 guys you can put on the court, for the first couple rounds, and then what 7, 8 guys you can put on the court, going forward.
Full health, I don't think he makes that cut.
he might make it to the ninth guy. You know what I mean? Like,
he could. I could see him in a playoff series. Like defense is kind of down. We're not really getting much out of our guys.
Yeah,
Let's roll him out.
Throw Rodney out there and see what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're hoping that the shooting comes around, but I still like what he brought to the table. And we'll touch on this a little bit later, but everybody was doing the sky is falling thing again. In the middle of the game, Clips are down 10, 12, 14. Everybody's like, oh my God, what's wrong with this team? All this other stuff, and it's like, at the end of the day, there's so much talent on this team, and this team is so good that we probably shouldn't be panicking every time they go down 10 against a team like New Orleans.
No, totally. And like I said, I wasn't really watching much of the game, but under the table at lunch with my partner's family, I'm kind of refreshing the score every now and then, seeing with that. And I see the team is down, 6 going into the fourth. And even if that was 10,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. But in the back of my head, I'm like, that's the Clippers are going to take over this fourth quarter.
Right.
Like I think that's something we can confidently say now.
Right.
Is as much as this team doesn't take the regular season seriously, they don't take the first 3 quarters seriously. I think as long as you're within 10, this Clippers team is not worried about that fourth quarter at all.
Right. Against really anybody, but it should just be against teams where they know that they're going to out-talent them. The problems that we've been running into is in games like Houston, Denver, teams like that are actually really good. Sure. You can't have that mindset, and that's what you're hoping to see sort of get fixed in the future. But at the same time, you touched on them not caring about the regular season. I'm pretty sure Kawhi came out and said that before the offseason. And we can touch on this too, but the whole ad campaign thing sort of put forth that we're going to go out and be this black top team or whatever Lawrence Frank called them preseason. But it's like, no, they're taking on the personality of their best player, who's Kawhi Leonard, who doesn't care and is rounding into shape.
Right.
I've got some stats on just how good he's been lately, but they're going to figure it out.
That's probably aside from the obvious 2 superstars and a heightened talent overall on the team. Yeah. The big difference from last year is that mood that's being set going into every single game and every night, right? Last year, I think it's pretty easy to say that Lou was kind of the leader of the team. And he set the pace a little bit there.
Lou and Pat. Yeah.
And Pat, that was the next one. And Pat comes in. I mean, he just, as much as, Kawhi doesn't take the regular season seriously, Pat takes the minutes during halftime seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
We watched him the other night in a suit, not active, block somebody's shot. Yeah. Not during game time. He's so aggressive. And in the locker room, I'll watch him in the locker room before a game goes on, and that brain does not stop. He's got headphones on. He's singing a song. He's watching film. And he'll be watching his own defensive film and getting excited. That's his mixtape, is watching himself block shots.
He's a fucking maniac.
Yeah, he's wild. He's just so. He might have CTE. I don't know. He might have CTE because the way he enters every game is almost terrifying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, he had plays like that today. One of the last Clippers possession that they scored on to sort of put them up 6 to sort of put the game away. It's an ISO for Kawhi. Kawhi does his Kawhi ISO things, gets down, takes this tough turnaround fadeaway that you expect to go in because he's fucking Kawhi, but he misses, and Pat comes, from behind the 3-point line and just darts, grabs the rebound, kicks it back out, and then Lou gets, the sort of game-winning, game-icing 3. Right. And, that type of stuff is what Pat brings to your team. He's just
in the last week, has Pat just become the best offensive rebounder in the NBA? Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. There was 2 nights ago he got 4 offensive rebounds in 1 possession.
Yeah, exactly. So he's great. He makes winning plays, and he's the type of guy that you want rolling into a potentially long playoff run.
Yeah, and fuck it, we can jump into what we've seen in the first half now. I think that's, as far as Pat goes, that's been his progression, and Doc has talked about it. He's kind of becoming like a true point guard a little bit. He's calling out plays. Doc said he gives them basically the playbook before every single game, and he's only done that with 3 players that he's coached. Right? Pat, Rondo, and Chris Paul. Yeah. That's
And the other
rarefied
two
air to
guys
be
is,
in.
I mean, high basketball IQs on the other end of that. Yeah.
And so just trusting him with that, like you watch it, Pat is being a little bit more of a true point guard. He's being a lot more passive. You know, he likes to do his baseline cut, kick it out to somebody.
Yeah, I wish he'd take more layups though, because Pat's, you know, you don't usually hear this about, you know, dudes like Pat, but he's like deceptively quick. Like dude gets north south really, really fast, and he can basically get by anybody. And I just wish that he kept his fucking head up more and wasn't looking to kick out to the corner every time, because he's getting layups. You know what I mean? And I want him to take that to the next level and actually start punishing defenses for letting him get to the hoop.
For sure. And take the contact, get to the line.
Right.
And
that's going to suck. That's going to suck defenders in too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you're right there. And if he was doing that a little earlier in the season, we wouldn't have this annual Patrick Beverley can't shoot a basketball until January 1st slump. Like it just would. And that probably honestly comes from a lack of, if he was at the free throw line a little more, maybe he would get into rhythm. But hey, I'll take it. I'd rather Pat slump in November than in April, when he usually has one of the best shooting months of the season.
Hold on, I'm gonna look up what he's shooting since December. But basically, let's get into sort of what we've taken away from this first half. You and I have had various sort of disagreements about the team, you know, kind of going up and down. So I just kind of want to hear what your general idea is. You know, we're sitting here halfway point in the season, basically. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, the team is good. I don't. There's no denying that.
Are you just going to take my line for my article, bro?
Well, maybe they're like, I think there was some legitimacy to what Trez said after that horrible loss to Memphis, where it's like, yeah, we're not great yet.
Yeah.
We're good, but we're not great. Okay, that's fair. But I also think this team has shown flashes of great, and it's easy to kind of harp on it. But this team is we're tied for second right now.
I'd have to check the standings, but we're up there.
Yeah,
there's
top
weird
three,
things with
top three.
Top three.
And I'd be interested to see where we land after this game, especially defensively. This last game against New Orleans, but after Orlando, we were 5 in offense and defensive rating. So and this is what we were just saying. This team doesn't take it seriously right now. Right. So for this team to be a top 3 seed, top 5 in offensive defensive rating, and like number 27 in actual effort is really impressive. It's terrifying. Yeah. And not to mention, I mean, we've seen what is it 18 games with PG and Kawhi together?
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And when those guys are on the floor together, who's stopping it?
Right.
Nobody can stop that tandem. They're so good.
Right.
But it is frustrating from a fan point of view. It's, we've seen a lot of like, this team isn't any fun to watch. And it's like, cool. Like, would you rather this team be really fun to watch right now and then exit in the first round? Right. Or would you kind of like to be like, it's frustrating, these guys don't always try, but I'm going to be watching this team play in June. You know
Hopefully.
what I mean? And, And I think that's the mindset behind it. But I mean, overall, awesome first half of the season. There's a lot of rotation stuff I'd like to see tighten up and change.
Right, which is tough when you don't have your top 9 guys healthy.
Absolutely.
Other than one game the whole season.
Yeah. And I like, there are a lot of unsung heroes on this team. Like everything is Kawhi. Kawhi's obviously putting up huge points. He's got some really good defensive possessions. And if you notice in the last couple of weeks, he started guarding the best guys.
Yeah, he asked.
On the upset
they said
team.
that actually on the broadcast today. He's asked Doc to now take the number 1 defensive, assignment.
Which is, I mean, obviously you don't ever want anybody hurt, but Mo Harkless couldn't have gotten hurt at a better time with Kawhi taking that on, because that was Mo Harkless's job for the first half of the season.
To buy Kawhi time to round into shape.
Absolutely. And he looks, Kawhi in game 42 looks so much better than Kawhi in game 1. His knee, he's not limping as much. Like we talked about it a couple games.
That was really scary. In the beginning of the year, just being there, you watched him walk around and he was gimpy. Just walking on the court. Like, he could move, he could burst or whatever. But, there were possessions where there's one in particular where he could have chased down this guy going for a layup and he just stopped.
Was it the Utah game?
It might have been the Utah game. I can't remember. I think I was watching it on TV. I wasn't there. But it was somebody he definitely could have gone to block the shot. and just stopped at the 3-point line because he knew he didn't have that. He knew his knees, his legs, whatever, weren't there. So yeah, he's going to need to be managed for the rest of the season, and I have no problem with that.
Right.
I've called for it since day one. If we could have survived the season with him playing 30 games, the last 30 games of the season, and then just being fresh for the playoffs, I would have done that. I would have done that 100 times out of 100, because the most important thing is to have him at peak levels when we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that I think the load management is the hot topic of the season, and which is so funny because people are acting like this hasn't happened for the last decade with other players, but
it happened with Kawhi in San Antonio.
Yeah. I mean, LeBron has literally taken sabbaticals in the middle of the season to go work out with Dwayne Wade in Miami.
Yeah. LeBron took 2-week sabbaticals every season for like 4 years in a row to go get right, quote unquote. You know what I mean? And it's like we keep talking about this like it hasn't been going on, and I think it's just because as time goes on, the sort of conversation around basketball becomes more radicalized, as does everything, because of the internet, right? So everything is trying to pull attention. And what's going to pull attention is talking about one of the marquee, which is insane that the Clippers are now in that, one of the marquee franchises, in the NBA. But sort of to go off what you're talking about, my first half takeaway is also that this team is really fucking good. Like you said, they're top 5 in offensive and defensive rating. They're 4th in net rating. They're 5th in win percentage in the entire NBA. And they're 4th in scoring differential. And then
that's elite. That's absolutely elite. Like, that's
we're
so
elite. And anybody else you talk about it, that's like a surefire top contender. Like, that would be one of the people you would say, yeah, for sure, that team is probably going to win the title, right? But what's been difficult is that there are 2 other teams in the NBA that have a better record, right? And that's the Bucks and the Lakers. Bucks, absolutely terrifying. The Lakers are very, very good, and they're beating the teams that are in front of them. They're doing things that I didn't expect them to. But I also hate the Lakers. So,
I mean, it is very uncharacteristic for a LeBron team to try this hard
this early.
Yeah, that's so. Like, I don't think the Lakers expected to really see this, but. Without talking about the Lakers too much, because we're not a Lakers podcast,
right, exactly.
It's a team working against narrative, right? Like, they've got so many guys that have had these backstories, or their legacy has kind of been tainted in some way, and they're working against that. And I think that that's what's driving them. But to be 4.5 games behind,
so I think it's 4. Right now, let me look at it right now.
Without being fully healthy. Without having full effort. Like, this team is the Cardiac Clippers still. Yeah. But the difference is last year, the Cardiac Clippers were trying really hard the whole time to get that win.
Because they didn't have the talent.
And this time it's cardiac because you're like, I know what you can do. Why are you not trying harder? But, it's driving us crazy during the games, but for different reasons, right? Because we know every game is winnable. Right. Whereas before it was like, it'd be really cool if we beat this team.
Right. That was insane that we beat the Warriors.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And so I think that's the big difference. Yeah. And I think putting that into perspective actually makes this first half of basketball a lot of fun for Clippers fans.
Yeah. I think too, like, you have to look at outside of just like everything. You got to kind of dig in, right? A lot of people have been complaining about, the bench and, the effort and all that other stuff. The team is first in second chance points. Yeah. I'm going to say that one more time. First in the NBA in second chance points. A Doc Rivers coach team is first.
Yeah. First for a Doc team without, obviously there's Zoo, but when most of your minutes at the center are coming from 6'9" in boots, Montrezl
he's 6'4" and a half. I promise you he's 6'4" and a half.
To be one of the top rebounding teams in the league. And honestly, Trez has been a huge part of that. I haven't looked at it in a little while, but not too long ago I was looking, he was leading the league in box outs.
Was he really?
Yeah, so it's not even him getting the rebound, it's him setting up the team to get rebound.
Yeah, because his offensive rebounding percentage and stuff like that isn't astronomical.
It's not great. Like,
Zoo has been a monster in those metrics, right? But then he's also very large. But the team's also still first in bench scoring in the entire NBA. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling, this is me, I have a feeling that they keep blowing these games, right? That they're blowing these leads because of their effort and their whatever. They're still 4th in net rating. The bench has the 4th highest net rating out of any bench in the league. And that includes actually the Lakers bench, the Bucks bench, and I can't remember who the third one is. It might be the Mavs. And then other stuff, right? Like, team is 3rd in free throw attempt rate,
That was actually going back to today's game. I love that 95% of Lou Williams' points in the first half were all off of free throws.
Yeah, dude. If he doesn't have it, which he ended up having it at the end, he went like next level in the fourth quarter. Just dropping threes and all that other stuff. But if he doesn't have it, he gets to the line. And like this team is filled with guys who can get to the line. Paul George, Kawhi, Lou Williams. Those are the types of things that you're going to need.
And make them at a high percentage.
Exactly.
Even Zoo, I think, is shooting over 70%.
Yeah, Zoo is not a bad free throw shooter. Yeah. And then if you talk about like the defense, the team is holding their opponents to the fifth lowest effective field goal percentage in the league. So, they're doing all the little things too. Even though we like to nitpick the effort, the team's really good. They're really good in all these metrics, and we still keep complaining.
Well, and I think the complaint is we're playing down to the competition. We're playing down to the competition. Yeah, but you know what else they do? They play up to the competition when it matters.
Right.
We're 2-1 against Houston, 2-1 against.
We're actually 1-2 against Houston. We dropped 1-2. Sorry, we dropped the first one because it was
1-2
Kawhi.
against Houston, 1-2 against Utah. But I feel like this team is kind of like, let's go out for one of these games and kick them in the teeth and show them what we're capable of doing, and then whatever. Yeah. And I almost wonder if it's a little bit of kind of like, let's let them sleep on us a little bit. Like I wonder how much this team wants the rest of the league to kind of sleep on them a little bit hit a switch in the playoffs.
It could be that, but I also think that a lot of it has to do with what we touched on too, where like they've been really hurt and there hasn't been a lot of time for practice. And a lot of what I've noticed is they're starting to roll out offensive actions more and more as time goes on, right? So what I'm worried about is in those earlier iterations of the Clippers, right, this season, basically everything has been like, just go out there and figure it out. Like a lot of isolation stuff, blah, blah, blah. Cause they're in the bottom half of the league. They're like 21st in assist percentage and 23rd in assist to turnover ratio. Basically there's a lot of things that are pointing to, they're not running a lot of stuff. It's a lot of isolation stuff. It's a lot of out talenting. So I think those records are more indicative of they're coming against a team that might not have the same amount of talent, but is close enough to where you can't just roll the ball out there and be like, yeah, we're just going to take over and win.
Yeah, sure.
So when stuff gets tight, they had nothing to lean on. I know in particular, like the third Rockets game and stuff like that, you have James Harden going supernova. And if your shots aren't falling on the other end and you're not running anything to get a good look, it's a lot harder to overcome those types of deficits. Right. So I think in the future, I think it might be part of that, but it's also like they haven't had the time to put their best foot forward all the time. The only time we're really seeing their best foot forward is against the Lakers, and I think that's because they take it personally. Right. I really do. I think that Kawhi takes the matchup personally. You've seen it in his play, and he just wants to win that game. And the team wants to win that game. And so they're going to do whatever it takes. I think they want to win that game
for Kawhi. I don't think that narrative is as heavy for the other guys on the team, except maybe Pat, because I think Pat hates having a team down the hallway. But takes outside of that, I think everybody kind of knows what that matchup does mean to Kawhi a little bit, and honestly to his legacy to some extent of being able to take down these big, Goliath teams throughout his career.
But I think it's also too, like even the players who have been there before, the Clippers have been dominating that matchup for 8 years now, and the narrative changes like, oh, the Lakers are the best team in LA just because of their record and all this other stuff. And I think the whole team is like, no, we're the best team. And we're just going to prove it every time we play you because you're the team that's trying to take that mantle. You know what I mean? So yeah,
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment of what's going on there. Yeah. But I mean, to your point of saying, just kind of trying to out talent some of these teams and not really practicing that much, they have had some practices recently, and you can see a difference on the floor. Yeah, Landry Shamet is becoming Landry Shamet again because they're running play actions for him. They weren't running horns for him. They weren't running floppy for him. You know what I mean? Like there was no screen play action for Shamet to run off. Yeah, he had a great
game today. He was really aggressive.
He's had a great couple games.
Yeah, getting his confidence back is really big.
And I think that's been a big Doc focus. If you look at the game against Orlando, I think it was, he led the team in minutes. He was out there during garbage time, and I think Doc's like, hey man, we're gonna get you back into shape. Yeah. Like we're gonna get you mentally comfortable with what's going on here. And Doc even said after that game, it took him a little while, but he's realized, I need to run less sets. I think he was trying to run too many things, and he's got all these new players, and I think he's kind of figuring out, this guy's really good at this guy's really good at this, and he's playing to everybody's strong suits, and he's doing it with running less play action to make things less complicated, which probably maybe isn't the greatest in the long run, but right now it's tightened them up. And their turnover, what was the turnover count tonight? I didn't even see the turnover rate, but it was 9 against the Magic, 11 against Cleveland, which were probably the two of the lowest turnover games the team has had.
Right, recently, yeah.
Especially with the amount of assists and passing they were doing on the floor. And I think it's that they've started practicing, and these guys know where the other 4 guys are on the court when they're making plays.
I think that's the most important thing, is guys are figuring out where their spots are for this particular team.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically the general overview of how I feel about it is team's great. They're 30-13? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
30-13. And you were saying that the team released that's the second best start in franchise history.
Yeah.
Right. And the first time since 2012, 2013, which just so happens to be the last year that Vinny Del Negro coached the team. So,
Yeah. I mean, so basically this is the best coached by Doc Rivers Clippers team we've seen. I don't know why I phrased that so awkwardly, but
best start for a Doc team in Clippers.
Yeah.
Whatever.
They got to 31 and 43 games.
So much worse than you. Like, I don't even care, dude. I died on that sentence. I just stopped.
Thank you for bailing me out.
Yeah.
It took them 43 games to get to 30 wins. Right. That 12-13 season, they got to 30 and 39 games. But that just says so much. That team didn't have JJ Redick on it. You know what I mean? Like, that just says so much about this team. And
wasn't that the lockout year too? That first year was that
12-13? Was it?
Maybe 11. I don't remember.
I don't know if that was lockout. But I feel like this is something where this is going to be the dead horse that we just keep hitting. This team is so much better than people are allowing them to be.
Right.
And it's just been, really since Christmas that they've played a little bit like a 500 team, but it's a long season. You know what I mean?
But they're
over 500 for sure.
They're still 16-7 since December, right? And they're 7-3 in their last 10. And we were all the sky is falling. What's wrong with the Clippers? What moves do they need to make? All this other stuff. When in actuality, they hit a rough patch in January.
Totally. And I'm 100% guilty of that. The knee-jerk reaction when you're looking at a loss or an ugly game in a vacuum.
Right.
It's just this. You can't get to that trade machine fast enough to figure out how how you're going to go
we need to get rid of everybody.
Yeah. I mean somewhere in Virginia, Ryan Snellings is sweating in front of a keyboard trying to get Joel Embiid over to the Clippers.
Dude.
But
don't even get me started on the Joel Embiid stuff, bro. I can't even believe that stuff.
But it's exactly a knee-jerk reaction. That's what it is.
Right.
And I've had that after a game, and I'm like, God, this team is so frustrating to watch. And then I wake up the next day and you look at the standings, you look at the record, and you're like, oh, right. And then you take it even further, look at the box score, and it's almost like jazz. Look at who's not playing. That's the thing with this Clippers team is like, go look at the injury report and then remind yourself of where this team has gotten so far.
Right.
And that is so impressive.
Right.
Anyway, so I think people just get a little too harsh.
Yeah. So it is our first episode, but I don't know if you know this, but we've actually secured some sponsors already.
Huge if true.
I know that I got one personally. I did some back channeling. I got it. So you've got one too?
Yeah, I've got to read it.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'll do mine first.
Okay.
And then we can get to yours.
Exciting.
So are you tired of seeing your right-hand man arm silly rabbit take Instagram pictures with other men? Would you rather be thanking them for making you feel good in the back of your limousine? Then head on down to Tokowitz Tailors. Tokowitz Tailors has been showing off beautiful bodies since 1981. Use our promo code Clipset to unlock their special white party pricing. Tokowitz Tailors. Their sterling reputation speaks for itself.
Also, the Clipset podcast is brought to you by Friendly Ghost Mattress. Are you feeling tired? Tired of constantly waking up? Take your rest to the next level, the eternal one. Our mattresses are so comfortable you'll never wake up again. Stop those restless nights dead in their tracks. With Friendly Ghost's new patented technology, you'll be ready to drift into the warming numbness of the absolute void. Use promo code CLIPSET now at checkout for a free one-night trial with your new Friendly Ghost mattress.
Wow, that's great. I can't believe we secured those accounts, dude.
Huge.
Those are huge sponsors, bro.
We are inching our way to the Trace Comas Club.
Yeah. Anyway, So basically, second half, just kind of wanted to touch on stuff that has been bothering us.
First half, you mean?
Sorry, first half. So for the second half of the podcast, things have been bothering us for the first half of the season. Yeah. I'll kind of start. We touched on it a little bit, but the team does struggle against teams that aren't as talented as they are. Sure. It would be nice to see the team push it a little bit more and take control and sort of impose their will on teams like that. Right now, they play into their style of play, right? So like today with the Pelicans, they went up and down. They didn't really play defense until the fourth quarter. Stuff like that is annoying to watch and kind of stressful, and induces those skies falling sort of takes from everybody else.
Yeah, I think it was either Russo or Clippers film room, but I feel like one of those guys brought up today that this team likes to have this like chameleon. They come out and they try to mimic what the other team is running on the floor instead of running their own sets.
I might have tweeted that. I didn't say chameleon though. We might have all said the same thing.
Yeah, but you're seeing it, and you know you saw it in that last game against Houston where it was just like, okay, let's just jack up threes. Let's just take as many threes as possible. And it's like, no, play your game, because I like. Kawhi comes from, you know, his foundation was in San Antonio, a team that's like, you are playing at our pace, whether you like it or not. Right. And he's so good at doing that. Yeah. But I feel like the rest of the team around him gets really worked up and they see, you know, these young run and gun teams or these like slow it down half court teams, like, you know, like say Utah or something like that. And they want to kind of, they get caught in this feverish pitch of like, we're going to play exactly like them. It's like, no, you don't have to. You can adjust to them on the defensive end, but when you've got the ball going out the other way, you got to play Clippers basketball. And when they do that, they're unstoppable. Like they have one of the highest offensive ratings, but they don't always do that. And like, I think that is pretty frustrating to watch at times. Yeah,
but it's also, I mean, that's also kind of goes back to the whole, is there really a Clippers basketball right now? Like Doc has said, you know, we don't have an identity yet and all this other stuff. So, you know, part of it is because they don't have that bedrock to lean on, you know, with all the other stuff with like the injuries and practice time and all that other stuff. But, you know, at the end of the day, you do hope that they A, find their identity, which I think they will, but B, even still, like, just drag the game down. If you're getting beat because they're getting out and running, just drag it down. Yeah. Slow it down. Yeah. And because we're going to score on the other end because we have Kawhi Leonard.
You go out there like Cleveland and you play like a bunch of slugs.
Exactly, bro. You got to slug it up, dude.
Play that slug life basketball.
Dude, get some slug sauce on the ball. I don't even know what that means.
I don't either, but it sounded
provocative,
bro. But yeah, and you know, the fans really, honestly, I don't have too many discrepancies with the team as, you know, through the first half of the season.
Discrepancies or disappointments?
Both.
Okay.
There have been some disappointments for sure.
Okay.
You know, before I even start roasting Clippers Twitter, the rotations through the first half have been a little questionable, which I think Doc is starting to figure out, and he's owned up to some of, you know, his kind of shortcomings on that end so far through the first half. And you know, we talked about it a little bit where that's probably dictated by some of the injuries, but you know, like
the Trezzu thing.
There's like this team leads the league in how many different starting lineups they rolled out on the floor, and JaMychal Green hasn't gotten one start.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You want him to play more. At the same time, though, I mean, the dude's been hurt and like hasn't really found his rhythm yet. And yeah, you'd like to see him get plug and play.
Jerome Robinson has more starts than JaMychal Green.
I'm convinced they're trying to drive up his trade value.
Oh yeah, they're doing the Avery Bradley trade.
I'm sorry, Jerome, if you hear this. I really do apologize. I'm sure you're a great guy. He's our first subscriber actually, but he fucking sucks, bro. Like he's a shooter who can't shoot and he's lost all his confidence.
Yeah, that it actually breaks my heart watching him play now with the lack of confidence that he has, because he'll get the best look you could possibly get on some corner threes, and he looks at it and you literally just see him put his head down and kind of drive in a little bit and pass it out to somebody. It's like, I feel for the guy. It's rough, but at the same time, like, man, it might be time to cut the losses. And you could be right, just driving up his trade value, maybe.
But it's doing the opposite.
I just don't know who wants to take him on.
I don't understand.
He's been okay defensively.
He's been okay defensively, but the offensive stuff is like he has less gravity than Mo.
It's brutal.
You know what I mean?
It's
and like
brutal.
That's that's bad. Yeah. You can't have that guy on the floor.
Here's one thing I want to say stop for the second half of the season. Stop comparing Paul George's numbers on any given night to Shai's numbers on any given night, and stop the Jerome Robinson, Michael Porter Jr. comparisons.
Oh my God, that's really the worst part.
But you can't go back. Just stop. Yeah. Just stop. Like you wouldn't trade anything to get to where this team is right now. Right. So just enjoy it for what it is. Yeah. And let's do it. Let's roast the Twitter sphere of Clipper Nation through some of these disappointing games, because it's like, stop the trade machines. Stop. If this team is going to make a trade, you have no idea what it is. Yeah. No, and it's going to come at 11:59 on the deadline.
Right. Exactly.
And this team we haven't been able to give it a chance. We've only seen one game with the whole thing. Right. And they've been great. Like, it's, take the Lakers. People love to say the Clippers are living rent free in the Lakers' heads. It's going the other way too, because everybody is comparing this Clippers team to the Lakers, and it's like, stop, get out of that vacuum and appreciate what's happening just from the Clippers' point of view.
Yeah. It's really frustrating. It's really, really frustrating, because people are saying that this team sucks. And we just outlined in the first,
it's literally one of the best Clippers teams that's ever existed.
One of the best Clippers teams ever, maybe if not the best Clippers team ever. And it's one of the best teams in the league right now. You know what I mean? Like, we're still
with all those things that you're complaining about. Yeah.
And so everybody, getting up in arms about every little thing, every 10-point lead, that another team has. Right. It's, blow up the team. And, it's shining a light on the fact that Clipper Nation was not ready for this. We've had such a defeatist attitude for so long because of, the Sterling years, which were horrific and everything. And we've been through the worst of it. And so I don't think we were ready to actually have a contender.
It happened fast.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think that the fan base as it is was ready to have a contender. Because we don't know what to do with that. Right. And we are so used to, when it feels like the sky is falling, the sky is actually falling. Right. And so we revert back to this like spiraling defeatism about everything that the team is going through, when in actuality, the team pulls it out more times than not. And, it's January.
Yeah. I mean, I've been, I think you're in the same boat as me. I've been watching this team since I was 5 years old. Yeah. And I always say I have a kicked a dog syndrome. Like, this team has just let me down so many times that it does make it hard to enjoy it sometimes. Right. But let yourselves enjoy it. This is a really, really special team. And if it doesn't happen this year, this team's locked up through next year. Right. And you're going to get an entire season of chemistry coming into next year. You know what I mean? Hopefully they do win a chip this year. That would be fantastic. This is
probably the most open window of the potential window for this team.
Exactly. And that's another point I want to make. This is what parity looks like, people. You're not going to see too many, 70 win Western Conference teams when you've got this much talent spread out throughout the league. Right. Like, there have been some disappointing teams that we were expecting to be a little better than they are, but those teams are still figuring it out too. Right. You know what I mean? Like sure, Utah's been great. You're not going to convince me that they're better without Mike Conley. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
But every year the Jazz do that. Right. Every year the Jazz suck for the first 3 months. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the second half of the season, because their schedule gets easier, they go on this like 20-4 run, and everybody's like, oh my God, the Jazz, but we're not giving the same length of rope to this team. Totally. And it is tied to sort of the Clipper fan psyche. But also, I think it's also this expectation that once we got Kawhi and Paul George, that we didn't have to go through that anymore. Right. Right. And we're so scared every time something goes wrong that this means that we were wrong in thinking that we could win a championship this year. Sure. When in actuality, that's just what happens in the NBA. It goes up and down. You lose to some teams you should beat. You beat some teams you should lose to. Like, that's just how the season goes.
Yeah. Imagine what Raptors fans felt last year in the series against Philly. That shot took years off of people's life expectation. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of what it is. And you could either let it feed into your fears and anxieties of what you've been through in the past, or you can be like, you know what? This is fucking fun to watch.
We should absolutely take what they did last year, and live like we're living with house money.
Yeah.
Because we are.
Absolutely.
We're living with house money. None of this like actually matters to us. We can have a whole discussion about fandom anyway. But like, dude, we have Kawhi Leonard. How are you not having fun? Yeah. I want to go to every game at Staples. When was the last time you wanted to go to every Clipper game?
I mean, last year, to be honest, because it was just like, hey, you don't know what you don't know. They're gonna fight till the end.
I don't know, dude. I'm not a big Tobias Harris guy, and so like watching Tobias Harris shoehorn himself into being a 1A dude was not fun for me. But
okay, that's
that
fair.
team was fun.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be plucky underdog.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I want to be. I'm tired of being the maybe they will, maybe they won't, or like, oh, this is a surprise.
Totally.
I want to be a world destroyer. And I think that this team can be a world destroyer come playoff time. And
even in the second half, I mean, look at the amount of back-to-backs in the first half versus the second half of the season.
Kawhi, hopefully, knock on wood, knock on whatever you want, practice Santeria to make sure that it doesn't happen. Like, whatever you want to do. If Kawhi only misses like 3 games the rest of the year, which is I think the amount of back-to-backs we still have. Right. It might be 3 or 4. It might be 4 actually. He's gonna be in rhythm and rounding into shape come playoff time, and that's what you need.
And on pace to play more games than he did last year in Toronto.
Exactly. I think 8 more games. I think he only played 60 games last year. He's on pace right now to play 68.
Yeah. So,
which is 80% of the season.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you know, like with some of the complaints with the rotations that I was kind of bringing up, they're figuring it out too. And you're seeing it tighten up. Landry Shamet's back in the starting lineup, and he looks amazing in the starting lineup.
Yeah, he looks good.
You know, he's getting more touches than he was with the Lou and Trez pick and roll. And then the big one, which, you know, we've talked about a lot, you know, together. I know you've written about a lot at Clipperholics. Zoo and Trez, like, I don't think Trez necessarily sucks and shouldn't close out games. No. I don't think that Zoo should be, you know, but Zoo's only being held to 18 minutes, although that has gone up a little bit. He's averaging closer to 22 minutes a game now, but
I think that's also influenced by the fact that Trez was out that one game.
Totally. But my biggest concern with Trez is he's playing 18 straight minutes to close out games. Doc's bringing him in at like the 5 or 6 minute mark in the third quarter.
After Zoo's first shift in the third,
he's
done.
Out. He's and it's just Trez. And, you know, we might have seen a little bit of it today. We noticed it. I was watching the game with the Locked On Clipper guys at the last one, and there were a couple possessions towards the end there where we saw Trez grabbing for his knee and was kind of limping, and we were like, oh, something's going on there. But then there was a timeout, and he came back and he looked fine. But then they rolled him back out, and they started to do the exact same thing this game, and that's what worries me. And the report came out today, right, that Atlanta looks like they might be the landing spot for Montrezl Harrell in free agency. Yeah. And there's a lot of questions on whether or not he's part of the Clippers long-term plans. And if he's not, I would imagine he gets moved at the deadline unless they can convince him to do a sign and trade with some other team.
Well, that's something actually I want to talk about anyway is, do they even need to make a move? No. Like everybody keeps talking about how the Clippers need to trade, and like it goes back to that hysteria that, you know, the Clippers fans get into, and now even the media, everybody is like, yeah, they're going to make a move. Like I even asked, I think, what's his name? Mo Daykill?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's had some like weird AMA, and I asked him on Twitter, I was like, do you think the Clippers have to make a move? Right. And he didn't even touch on it. He said, they're going to make a move. And like flatly, like they're going to make a move.
Right. And if they do, but like I said, it's not going to be the splash everybody wants it to be.
Right.
You're going to see, I think Mo is the biggest name you see get traded. Right. And it's just easy to do because he's making $11 million a year.
Right. Exactly.
Our probably most talented guys, especially off the bench, they don't make enough money to get equal value back in a trade.
Right. Like you'd have to package Lou and Trez, which are our 2 best assets, quote unquote.
Absolutely.
To get anybody of like those 2 make as much as Robert Covington does alone.
And what are you getting back with that? You brought it up already. It's still one of the best benches in the team. Or in the league. It is definitely the best bench on the team.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But you're not getting that same amount of value back for that money.
You're not getting the piece that puts you over the top.
Absolutely not. Right. No. If anything, you're making a lateral move, which I don't even see that happening. It would be really hard to make a lateral move getting rid of some of those contracts because they're just so team friendly that it's almost hurt their trade value.
Exactly. I don't know about Trez's, you know, future with the Clippers. I'm not as big on Trez as everybody else is.
Sure.
this is probably going to get me fired and canceled and all that other stuff. But I think he's a bench player. I don't think he's a starter.
No,
I think he's too small. I think he can be a liability defensively.
He needs a shot if he's going to be starting, because he needs to be a starting 4, not a starting 5.
Yeah, but like even now, his pick and roll with Lou hasn't been as effective this year as it has in years past. And all the talk about his jump shot never really came to be anything. And he's not big enough for me. He's a good spark plug guy, but I think his minutes should be capped at like 24 to 26 minutes. And that's just not going to happen on this team.
Right. And Zach Lowe actually talked about this on his last podcast a little bit, where, he was like, a lot of what Trez is doing offensively off the bench is an energy thing. He's out energizing the other guy, and that's how he's getting those buckets and getting to the line and all of that. Right. But come playoff time, the gap in energy is going to tighten up a lot, and it's not going to be there as much. And then I think you're going to see his 6'9" frame become an issue with his minutes on the floor, especially if you're playing against like Denver, who's got a ton of bigs, or like even the Lakers. Like they've got 3 really quality bigs that could run out on the floor. Yeah. And that amount of energy is going to be met come playoff time. Right. And that whistle is going to tighten up come playoff time. That's why I think Pat is always such a good performer in the playoffs, because he won't foul out in the playoffs because they're not calling nearly as much. Right. And vice versa with James Harden. I talked about this with a friend of mine. Harden's playoff flops come from the fact that he's not getting the whistle he gets during the regular season, which is what he kind of lives off of.
I also think he's exhausted. I mean, you can be in the best shape of your life,
but he always leads the league in minutes played, right?
But if you're dominating, games the way that he dominates games, it's a lot of energy. But yeah, I think the whistle thing comes up too. Speaking of whistles, Paul George and Kawhi have become #true Clippers this season. I mean, for all the talk about Kawhi not talking or whatever, every possession you hear Kawhi going, "Hey!" every time he goes to the basket. Like they are complaining at like almost Blake Griffin level rates.
Yeah, I like that Doc was like, I've learned from my mistakes. We're gonna rebound. No, that's gonna happen. But we're going to start bitching about calls again. We're going to start doing that again.
That's the trade-off. Yeah, we're going to crash the offensive glass, but we're going to be in the ref's ear all game.
Yeah, and it worries me that that's going to start getting grading on the officials. Yep. And we're going to start seeing more T's come into effect. Yeah. And it's funny. I feel like this is the most emotional season I've ever seen Lou Williams. He got ejected this year in the first half. Like he
was probably stressed about his.
That's fair, but I mean, he's always cool and collected, and like you've seen him push guys over and like get really frustrated in games and stuff like that. And so, but it is bizarre, and only the LA Clippers could take this bionic, devoid of emotion dude like Kawhi Leonard, and turn him into a complainer.
We should probably stop describing him as a robot, because it kind of dehumanizes him. Sorry, PC over here. But like, this guy was like mild mannered, right? This guy was quiet, quiet, if you will.
I won't. I definitely won't.
Please, can you?
I will not.
All right,
I willn't.
But like him and PG have been complaining a lot, and Lou and Trez, and I mean, they kind of did that anyway, but I'd like to see that kind of stop.
I think it will too. I think that they probably have had some of the same frustrations that fans have through that first half, right? Yeah. And I gotta imagine just frustrating that they don't have a full team around them. You know what I mean? Like that's got to be wearing on them a little bit.
Yeah, and it's been exhausting. It's been a rough, whatever.
That was a brutal first half of the season.
Yeah, it was a brutal first half. Yeah. Anyway, so the last thing that I want to touch on is this ad campaign. Okay. So this is simple. This is my last real gripe. Okay. So when we did the signings, I was overjoyed, right? And then they come out with this commercial, the streetlights over whatever,
substance over
whatever,
fucking not commercials.
We're not the Lakers. It's the whole commercial. Okay. And you see it the first time and you're like, fuck yeah, we made it. You know what I mean?
You start talking like the guy in the commercial. Yeah, like the LA Clippers.
Yeah, and then you like tat it on your face like I did. Earned over whatever, spurned. I don't know what the fuck. So I don't know. You watch these games now, and it plays every third commercial break, and the team. So here's my real thing.
Okay.
We had this whole ad campaign about how we're going to go in and we're going to be gritty and we're going to earn every game. We talked about this a little earlier, but like it's setting up this expectation that the team is something that we didn't know if that's what they were going to be, right? This like bulldog, whatever. They have that. They have that in them. Primarily because Pat Beverly is that all the time. Right. Pat Beverly barks at his eggs when he's making breakfast. You know what I mean? Like, Pat's insane. But we definitely got, there's a lot of flack on Twitter, which is where I spend most of my time. But like, even in real life, people are sick of the campaign. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got fucking goosebumps the first time I saw the opening video for this season.
Because of that sick ass wave in the beginning, huh?
Oh, dude, I hate the wave. Don't start talking about the wave. Clipper Nation, please stop doing the wave. Just
dude,
please.
The commercial opens with a massive swell coming in. What do you think is happening there, dude?
But anyway, like I got chills the first time I saw that opening video that they play before every game. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this is amazing.
You talking about the hype video?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got whatever. So, which is really interesting that a guy who requested a trade and a guy who left a championship team was talking about how they got loyalty in their DNA, but whatever, it's fine.
Loyal to LA, okay.
Loyal to LA now, I guess. But yeah, like it set up this expectation that I don't think was realistic, especially for a team that had some new parts and like was trying to figure it out and wasn't necessarily healthy, blah, blah, blah. But I do think that's kind of actually fed into some of the disappointment with the team. And I'd kind of like everybody to just kind of like, let's push that to the back. Like, yeah, we did it. It's all marketing. It's not necessarily what the team is, right. You know, but it's still frustrating.
That's fair. I mean, as far as like the hype video in the beginning of games, I think the most frustrating and disappointing part of that whole thing is there's that really cool kind of drum beat in the beginning, and they've got the light up drums on the court, and the Clipper Spirit cannot drum to the rhythm of the song.
No. What you don't understand is that's been going on for 3 years, Brian. My third article for Clipperholics was talking about how that needed to stop. Okay, because it's always been off. It's had nothing to do with
so
anything. They're doing their own thing, and it's awful. Frankly, it's awful and it's distracting. I don't know why they keep letting it happen. I thought for sure they would rectify the issue this year, but no, it's their drumming. They're doing their drum thing. And there also happens to be a video going on about it.
But are the lights not matching up with the song in the
lights
video?
does not. The lights do not.
Weird. All right, yeah.
Maybe
so
they just fix that, but their drumming is different.
Yeah,
they're doing some like clinks up at the top and do. It's never what it is. It bothers me a lot, actually.
That's fair. The hype video is fun the first couple times you see it, though.
Dude, it's amazing.
Yeah,
gave me chills. I got rock hard. I was like ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, it was exciting.
So you were that guy at Staples Center.
I was standing on it. But now it's just kind of like, Jesus, guys.
Yeah, but I think outside of the hype video, obviously, because you're only going to see that in game,
right? Or
if you're in Kansas somewhere watching it on League Pass.
Right.
The marketing campaign, it isn't for us. Like I've said this to a couple people. You know, it was the same kind of thing when the team rolled out Chuck the Condor, and everybody's like, "What the fuck is this? This is lame."
Do not look up my tweets about Chuck the Condor. I went off that night.
But it's not for you. Like that's what it like. When Chuck came out, I said the same thing. I'm like, "Hey, this isn't for you. Are you a 4-year-old kid that's distracted at a basketball game?
Right.
Then don't have an opinion on it, dude."
I've come around to Chuck.
Yeah, they didn't create Chuck so that some fucking 35-year-old guy at a game would be stoked on this Condor with a helmet on. No, they put it out there for kids, and this campaign is just another step in that kind of realm,
right? Where
I feel like the franchise has been like, okay, LA, it's a Lakers town. We're not getting the 18 to 45-year-olds now.
The Kobastanis. We're not getting them. Yeah.
Fucking let go of that. It's not that's not us.
Right.
But they've gone around. They've handed out backpacks at every school in LAUSD.
Yes.
They've started to basically refurbish almost every basketball court in Los Angeles.
They refurbished every court that needed to be refurbished.
Yeah. They're doing all of this work. Like they've got all these different foundations that's working with, schools and the youth of Los Angeles. And they've punted the fan base of right now. And what they're doing is, hey, in 15 years, Clipper Nation is going to be LA.
It's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might not be the most, but there's going to be.
Oh, it's going to be ravenous, though. It's going to be diehard kids.
Yeah, diehard Clipper fans.
And, like, obviously those exist now, but this is going to be on a much bigger scale. They're going to have their own arena in Inglewood. Right. I mean, obviously, who knows, right?
Yeah,
but that's what this is all for. So it's like, I see those ads and like the, street lights over, whatever it is. Like, okay, like, at first I'm like, right on. And then I'm like, okay, this is fucking corny, but
dude, like
it's
fourth
not,
tagline
it's not corny to some 9-year-old kid. You know what I mean? And like, that's
some 9-year-old kids it probably is super corny, but like you and me as 9-year-olds would be like, fuck this team, bro. Bunch of posers. No.
Totally. And then just do a sick kickflip and yell at my mom.
Go listen to The Cure. Yeah.
but yeah, so like, I think that marketing campaign isn't for the current, ticket holder. I think it's for the next generation of kids. And I think that's what they're going after, which is awesome. I'm all for it.
I'm all for it too. Yeah. And I've said similar things too. It's just like, it's only frustrating now because of what we've had to deal with all year. From, even segments of Clipper Nation. So.
Cool. Anything else you want to go over through that first half? What do you want to see in the? I guess we kind of talked about what we want to see in the second.
Yeah, I just want to see
healthy team running
healthy
plays.
Team. That's all I want. I just want health. I want our top 9 guys healthy, and I want like a 6-game tune-up before the playoffs.
I have one question for you, and I was talking to Chuck Mockler from.
I thought you were going to say the Condor.
I was talking to Chuck the Condor.
We were doing some sick.
Hey man, Mockler is just as rare. Okay,
oh, really?
Yeah, just a rare species.
Is he as good as a skateboarder, bro?
Unconfirmed.
Okay.
But I was asking him, because we spent a lot of time talking about the health issues, and we were without Paul George for the first 11 games of the season, and now he's missed his 5th straight. Let's say, and obviously hope that this doesn't happen, PG doesn't come back or something like that. Or
is hurt, come in playoff time?
Yeah. What is this team ceiling without Paul George on the floor?
We lose in the second round to somebody. I think.
You don't think they contend at all?
We need, so like even watching games like today, right? We out-talented the Pelicans or whatever. Sure. Or even watching, because he didn't play against Denver,
the team got a lucky break. Not having to face Drew Holiday because he loves to eat the Clippers.
That's true. But like, you look at our game against Denver, right? No PG. We need that second guy who can take over a stretch. Right. Technically, yes, we have 2 modes when he's not there. We have the Kawhi take over and then like the Lou Trez, one of those, things take over. But we need that other guy, right? Because you even watch like Jeremy, I didn't think Denver had anybody who could guard Kawhi, right? And then Jeremy Grant gets switched onto him and frustrates him.
Yeah.
Doesn't shut him down, but frustrates him. Yeah. Takes him off his spot.
He's been an underrated defender through most of his career.
Yeah, but I mean, like, takes him off his spot and his length and all this other stuff starts bothering Kawhi. And that's when you need that second guy that they can't handle.
Right.
You know what I mean? We also need Paul George for the Lakers matchup, God forbid. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because we need more than one guy. I think a big part of why we can beat the Lakers is we stop their offensive fulcrum, which is LeBron, right? The team still runs through LeBron, even though AD is there and AD is a monster, right? We can throw enough stuff at AD to like either bother him or we can just let him eat, right? We just need to stop LeBron from doing everything else. You kind of need both guys, right? Especially in a playoff game to switch off on guarding him, going at him, tiring him out. So while I think that they would win in the first round, right, because you have Kawhi, and you're probably going to make some noise in the second round, you have to understand who we're going to be facing in the second round. It's either going to be Houston, LA, or Denver, maybe even the Jazz.
Yeah, Utah.
And all those teams can give us problems in different ways, and just having Kawhi might not be enough to get us past those teams. He might be, but he also it's almost too much, especially this year. We need both to be a title contender. We don't beat the Bucks if we just have Kawhi. We don't. We just don't.
We almost did without him and PG, and then played worse with those guys.
Yeah, that was insane. But that was like one of those like weird November games. But I don't see how this team reaches its actual ceiling, which is winning the title, without both.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fair. Cool. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for sitting in with us on the first episode of the Clipset podcast. We're going to be bringing you stuff every week. We really appreciate all the support. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review.
If you don't, Donald Sterling wins.
And that's a fact.